Hi, I'm Hope,
I'm David.
and we're from Mazzy Star, and you're watching 120 Minutes on MTV.
Mazzy Star, the rock band, captured the hearts of rock fans in the 90s with their sweet sounds. But behind their sound lay a tragic story of career pressures, band members' untimely passing, and demands from labels. Join us as we unveil every detail, from their success to their challenges. Mazzy Star has been recognized as an American alternative rock band, which was formed in 1988 in Santa Monica, California. The band is best known for the song Fade Into You, which brought them massive success in the mid-90s, and somehow it also became the group's biggest mainstream hit, giving them lots of exposure and radio airplay. As a band, Roback and Sandoval were the creative center of the band, with Sandoval as the main lyricist and Roback as the composer of the majority of the band's material. Well, with all of the successes they enjoyed, the band was faced with a series of tragedies, especially the painful passing of Roback in Los Angeles on the 24th of February 2020 from cancer, alongside other losses that took place. Before David Roback became a musician, he spent time in New York in the late 70s where he was aspiring to be a painter. In a 1990 interview, he mentioned that he went to New York mainly to be part of the art industry, but somehow he gradually found himself getting more inspired by what was happening in music than in art. At that time, he felt like a young, inexperienced person. That was the attitude he was able to identify with. But when he decided to pick up the guitar and started playing it, the music didn't come out sounding that way. Rather, it was something else. After a brief period in New York, he decided to return to Los Angeles. Both David Roback and Hope Sandoval came from totally different backgrounds. Roback grew up in Los Angeles with a bohemian underground. By his early 20s, he had already dropped out of his film program. They were both part of other bands before forming Mazzy Star. Roback started a band with his brother Stephen Roback and others, who later co-founded the Bangles. After that, by the break of 1982, the Roback brothers launched Rain Parade. From there, they were able to gain recognition in LA. The band has deep roots within the Californian Paisley underground movement of the early 80s. At that time, David Roback, along with his brother Stephen, was one of the main artists leading Los Angeles. When he departed from that band following their initial album, at the start of 1983, he established Clay Allison with his former girlfriend, ex-Dream Syndicate bassist Kendra Smith. Shortly after the release of their only single titled Fell from the Sun, All Souls, the band Clay Allison then went on to rebrand as Opal and were able to successfully release the LP Happy Nightmare Baby on the 14th of December, 1987. Somewhere in Central California, a young teenage girl, Hope Sandoval, was born on the 24th of June, 1966, in Los Angeles, to parents of Mexican-American origin and grew up in East Los Angeles. As a young child, her father worked as a butcher, while her mother was employed at a potato chip manufacturing firm with a sibling and 7 half-siblings. Unfortunately, Sandoval's share of tragedy came quite early, as her parents got divorced during her childhood, and she was mainly brought up by her mother. Growing up, she attended Mark Keppel High School in Alhambra, but somehow, she also faced challenges socially and academically, which eventually resulted in her placement in special education classes. As time went on, she started skipping her classes, opting to stay home and listen to records instead. As it was quite common at that time, the majority of young people didn't want to attend school. As for her, since there was no one watching, she could make the decision to drop out without anybody questioning it. Eventually, she left high school. Sandoval became interested in music very early. At the age of 13, the Rolling Stones had a notable impact on her and were one of her major influences. By the break of 1986, she created the folk music duo Going Home with Sylvia Gomez. During her time at Going Home, she played gigs with Sonic Youth and Minutemen. At that time, they were both big fans of Rain Parade and took a bold step to get noticed. After a 1983 Rain Parade concert, Gomez went backstage and handed David Roback a demo tape. He reached out to the pair and proposed that he would play guitar for them, although it was revealed that the content recorded by Gomez, Sandoval, and Roback is still unreleased. With Roback, Opal was more like the major foundation of Mazzy Star's musical success, often featuring the same psychedelic guitar drones, similar blues, and folk that would later appear on the band Mazzy Star's recordings. When Smith left Opal under certain circumstances in the middle of a tour supporting the Jesus and Mary chain, immediately Sandoval was the closest person who came to mind. As such, she was chosen as Smith's replacement. Despite Smith's departure, Rough Trade retained Roback's original record deal as long as he could supply a follow-up to Opal's debut LP. Consequently, Roback and Sandoval kept touring under the Opal name for 2 years. During this period, they were able to finalize the production of Opal's second album, named Ghost Highway. This particular album primarily featured tracks penned by Roback and Smith, although Sandoval mentioned how she was not satisfied with the content, and indicated a desire to begin something entirely fresh. So it wasn't long after this that they both created and filmed 7 fresh songs at Hyde Street Studios in San Francisco, and this was the point where they rebranded themselves as Mazzy Star. The name of the band has been speculated over the years to have been derived from a misheard phrase that was inspired by a friend's idea. It is believed that Roback misheard or misinterpreted the name of a folk musician or record and liked the way it sounded. Written over a year before Mazzy Star's inception, the track Ghost Highway is recognized as the band's only original song to not feature a writing credit from Sandoval, while another song titled Give You My Lovin' was said to have been written by Going Home guitarist Sylvia Gomez and was first recorded by Sandoval and Gomez in the mid-80s. By the break of May 1990, She Hangs Brightly was released on Rough Trade and, although it was not an immediate commercial success, the album established the duo with the lead single titled Blue Flower, peaking at number 29 on Billboard's Modern Rock Tracks chart. Aside from that, it was able to sell over 70,000 copies in the UK. Hope Sandoval soon became the group's vocalist when Kendra Smith left Opal. At that time, their hit song was released on their 1993 album titled So Tonight That I Might See. One significant aspect of the band, their sound and recording process, was their ability to capture an intimate and dreamlike atmosphere. Soon, their song Fade Into You became an anthem for teenagers in the 90s. Aside from that, it was highly embraced by Hollywood. The track was successfully licensed for over 30 movies and TV shows with some key artists doing covers for it. The band promoted the album with a 5-month tour of the US and Europe, after which Sandoval and Roback began work on new material. In addition to touring and television appearances, their label landed the band some high-profile slots, appearing in the films like Batman Forever and Stealing Beauty. As the band's label saw it, these 2 films were able to keep the band in the public eye. One time during an interview, Sandoval shared insight into her songwriting process. She mentioned that she likes to hang out in restaurants and cafes, and just while she is there, she would eavesdrop on people's conversations and collect new stories. Then, by the time she got home, she would spend the evenings developing them into songs and bringing out beautiful lyrics from the conversations she heard. On the other hand, a major part of Mazzy Star's magic and sweet sound came from the deep connection between Roback and Sandoval, whose bond and chemistry were able to define the band's music style and timeless sound. During another interview, she also spoke about her connection with David Roback, describing how most times they don't even really need to speak to each other. Rather, by the use of telepathy, the ability to transmit thoughts, feelings, or ideas directly from one person's mind to another without using speech, writing, or any other conventional communication methods, they can communicate, showing the depth of their connection and chemistry as a duo. The duo was rumored to have briefly been a couple around the time they recorded their debut album, titled She Hangs Brightly, although this was mere speculation. Mazzy Star's sound was heavily influenced by a California-based movement that blended psychedelic sounds with rich vocal harmonies. They also drew inspiration from the 60s groups like Love and the Byrds. At that time, many compared them to the Cowboy Junkies, particularly their 1988 album titled The Trinity Session. Well, unfortunately, with all of the comparisons that went on during the peak of their career, David Roback pushed back against these comparisons several times, mentioning that he has never even heard the Cowboy Junkies record since he doesn't listen to a lot of contemporary music. According to him, he mentioned that he tries to intentionally avoid them because he doesn't want to be influenced by them. In another instance, this time, it was Sandoval who was caught up in an interview and she also dismissed folk music as an influence. Instead, she admitted to being a fan of the Rolling Stones and recalled discovering the song Love in Vain on a live Stones album, and immediately she fell in love with it. As for guitar playing, she mentioned Keith Richards as the one who ultimately inspired her to pick up the guitar. When it came to promoting the band's work, Roback handled more of that to a larger extent, as Sandoval was known to be very reserved and quiet, as she even rarely spoke about her personal life or the meaning behind her lyrics. Considering Roback's personality, he never held back from praising her. One time, he mentioned that he thinks Hope deserves a lot of attention, further stating that he feels she is a great singer and a great songwriter. When he first heard her, he thought she could be someone like Bob Dylan, someone who could speak for a lot of people her age, because one thing that he sees in her songs is the hope that comes with it. Somehow, it brings that reassurance to the listener that something nice can come out of a very bad environment, more like something that tells you all isn't lost. With the successes they enjoyed, also came tragedies and controversies. Well, initially, the very first tragedy hit the band when the American branch of Rough Trade folded in late 1990. This was soon after the release of the group's debut album, briefly leaving Mazzy Star without a record label. Within weeks, the duo's contract was picked up by Capitol. At that time, they had to spend the next couple of years working on the material that was to become their second hit album, So Tonight That I Might See, which was eventually going to produce the band's biggest hit, Fade Into You. Although, according to them, they never thought the track would be such a big hit. During an interview later on, Roback mentioned that it was never intended to be a nostalgic song, more like a longing for the past or memories, emphasizing the fact that it really was about the present. He also revealed that during that time, they used to walk on the beach a lot and walk around the city, and the whole thing came almost at the same time when they weren't trying to write a hit song. To them, they were just writing a normal song, further describing how they wrote the whole song in a day, while Fade Into You was able to push the album. So Tonight I Might See to gold platinum, selling over 1 million copies, topping the charts at number 3 on the modern rock charts in America. By the break of October 29th, 1996, their final album for Capitol, Among My Swan, was released, entering the Billboard 200 at number 68. By September 2001, it was able to at least sell 214,000 copies in the United States. The album was less commercially successful than those released initially, although it produced its highest peaking single in the United Kingdom. Then Flowers in December, which entered at number 40, became their only top 40 entry on the chart. Upon releasing the album, Among My Swan, Capitol Records' head of marketing tried to help promote the album. As such, the label held a contest among retail outlets based on play counts of the album and in-store sales, with the winning store getting their own personal Mazzy Star concert. Well, unfortunately, Among My Swan became a commercial disappointment for Capitol Records, peaking at number 68 on the Billboard album charts, and it sold less than the other albums. It was during this period that Sandoval reportedly begged the band's label to be released from the contract. She mentioned that it seemed record companies wanted bands to be creative because they didn't know how to manufacture underground music. According to her, it was more like they should be allowed to do their own thing and go at their own pace. But somehow, that changed when major labels started wanting bands that would sell up to 7 million records. To her, most of these labels had a formula, and suddenly, all these people wanted to come to the studio to keep track of what they were doing and make sure that they were following that particular formula. As such, they had to just leave. This split was a major setback for the band, and it also affected everything that they've built over the years. This was obviously the beginning of the end. By the time the band had ended, Sandoval, who had appeared on the Jesus and Mary Chain's 1994 release Stoned and Dethroned, made another guest appearance on their album Monkey, and also collaborated with the Chemical Brothers, while Roback, on the other hand, produced and mixed 2 songs found on Beth Orton's 1990 album Central Reservation. By the break of June 2000, the band then decided to reunite for a mini tour of Europe, where they were able to perform up to 7 new songs at each of these concerts. In an interview, she disclosed that approximately at this period, new songs were penned and recorded for Mazzy Star's 4th studio album, scheduled for an independent release in the future, but this did not happen, as later that same year, Sandoval teamed up with Kolomo Siosoig to create Hope Sandoval and the Warm Inventions. In October 2000, Sandoval released her initial EP with the Warm Inventions, At the Doorway Again, and a year later, she followed it with her first full-length album, Bavarian Fruit Bread. During this period, Sandoval also provided vocals for various songs by different artists. Sometime in 2004, David Roback made his debut appearance as an actor in the film titled Clean. He also wrote and produced 3 songs that were performed in the film by actress Maggie Cheung. After Mazzy Star went on a break in 1997, Sandoval and Roback drifted into other musical projects. Sandoval hinted that the band was going to put out another record in 2000 during an interview. She mentioned that they are still together and that they are almost finished with the record, but somehow she has no idea when that will be. During their break, Roback relocated from LA to Norway, where he was collaborating with other artists and even contributing music to art installations. By the break of 2012, the band reunited for a tour with rumors about a forthcoming album. They were able to complete an 18-date tour of California and Europe with some dates in 2013. Roback confirmed once that the band was recording a new album called Seasons of Your Day, which was officially released in September 2013, peaking in the UK, peaking at number 24 on the UK albums chart and number 42 on the Billboard album charts in America. There's no doubt that while the band achieved significant success, they also faced tragedies and controversies that impacted their journey. During the period of their peak success, Mazzy Star's journey was also marked by controversies, particularly concerning their live performances and interactions with the media. One of the major controversies they faced at that time was Hope Sandoval's introverted, calm, and shy nature. Somehow, a few persons speculated that this attitude had influenced the band's live performances. She was known for her reluctance to engage with audiences, often performing with less interaction and sometimes with her eyes closed. This led to mixed reactions, as some fans appreciated the focus on music more, while others felt disconnected due to their lack of engagement from her. It was quite obvious that her shyness extended beyond the stage, as it also affected most of their promotional activities and media interactions, which some speculated would have contributed to their decline in the music industry. Another major setback they faced was troubles from record labels. Mazzy Star resisted mainstream industry expectations, which created tension with record labels. Their breakout hit, Fade Into You, made them famous, but they were reluctant to embrace commercial success. Sandoval, in particular, disliked interviews and promotional activities. She once described how she never liked being in the spotlight. Aside from that, their unwillingness to play by industry rules was one thing that often put them at odds with their label, Capitol Records. Another source of tension that was created in the band was David Roback's strong influence over Mazzy Star's musical direction. As the band's primary songwriter and producer, he was known to be extremely detailed and demanding in the studio. Some insiders suggested that his push for perfection slowed down the band's output, and somehow it led to long gaps between albums. Their third album, Among My Swan, was one of such albums speculated to have faced his longing for perfection. As such, it took years to complete, partly due to Roback's demands on a specific sound. While this attention to detail resulted in iconic music, it also frustrated those who wanted a faster creative process. The band also faced significant tragedies with the passing of key band members, beginning with Keith Mitchell, who was the band's founding drummer. He passed away on May 14th of 2017 after battling cancer. Mitchell's drumming was key to Mazzy Star's distinctive sound, contributing to their albums and live performances. His passing was a huge loss for the band and its fans. Keith Mitchell, who was recognized as a renowned drummer for the band, his passing was announced by the band members on their Facebook page, expressing their heartbreak and admiration for his talent. Mitchell's musical journey began with the band Opal, which was part of the Los Angeles Paisley underground scene. After vocalist Kendra Smith's departure and Sandoval joined, leading to the formation of the band Mazzy Star, Mitchell's drumming was featured on all 4 of the band's albums, including their most popular song, Fade Into You. Beyond Mazzy Star, Mitchell was known as Big Beat in the Los Angeles music industry, clearly showing his dynamic drumming style and his overall contributions to music, which left a significant mark on the industry. The EP, still released on June 1st, 2018, was dedicated to Keith Mitchell and stage manager Tom Cashin, who also passed on in 2017. It was years since the band had last reunited for a performance, but in 2018, they came together again for a 3-night series at the Sydney Opera House for Vivid Live. Although it was quite obvious that things had gone from good to bad for the band, as that performance was able to gain media attention when some fans walked out mid-show. The entire concert was performed in complete darkness, and many expressed their anger on social media. Well, that same month, the band released an EP titled Still. It was also revealed that David Roback remained in touch with his former Opal bandmate, Kendra Smith, and had been working on a re-release of Happy Nightmare Baby, along with a compilation of early Opal EPs called Early Recordings. Well, the bigger tragedy was just waiting around the corner. David Roback, co-founder, guitarist, and songwriter, also passed away on the 24th of February 2020 at the age of 61. Roback was a key figure in the Los Angeles Paisley underground scene before forming Mazzy Star with vocalist Hope Sandoval. His passing marked the end of an era for the band, as he was instrumental in crafting their signature sound. The losses of Mitchell and Roback were significant blows to Mazzy Star, impacting both the band's continuous existence and their creative output. After his passing, his bandmate, the iconic artist Hope Sandoval, shared a touching message on social media, asking what she was supposed to do now, especially now that he left her here, even though the dark blue sky is still radiant and still filled with the comforting sadness that held them together. Without him, the band's future became uncertain, as he was its driving force and powerhouse. But somehow, the band's ability to maintain their integrity, even when faced with controversies, internal struggles, external pressures, and tragedies, has placed them as influential figures in music history. Despite these struggles, Mazzy Star maintained its integrity, prioritizing its artistic vision over fame. Their work and legacy continue to inspire artists around the world and also connect with audiences. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.